Good Lord, Mark, what in the world is that thing on your house? That's how it started. My neighbor George Henderson standing at the end of my driveway, clutching his newspaper like a shield, staring at my brand new front door as if I'd parked a tank right in the middle of Willow Creek Estates. I just rested my hand on the cold steel, gave the wheel a slow turn, listened to the bolts clunk home and said, "Peace of mind, George. Just peace of mind." But let me back up a sec, because you don't just wake up one morning and decide to install a bank vault door on your house. That's not in any Home Depot how-to book, believe me. No, this whole saga was born out of months of living under the thumb of an HOA president who could have made the Pope cuss, and one midnight break-in that finally pushed me over the edge. See, I moved here thinking I'd found my own little slice of heaven, quiet cul-de-sac trees that actually shaded the porch, a little nature preserve out back where the chickadees would bicker over the feeder every morning. I'm an engineer, not a troublemaker. Figured I'd tinker in the garage, keep my grass tidy, and mind my own business. What I didn't know, what nobody warned me about, was that this so-called paradise came with Karen Whitfield, a woman who ran the HOA like it was her personal fiefdom. If Napoleon and Martha Stewart ever had a kid and handed her a clipboard, you'd have Karen. She believed rules were gospel, and that her jurisdiction stretched from my begonias straight into my living room. At first, I tried to play by the book, reasoned with her, sent polite letters, even attached scientific articles about pest-resistant flowers to my replies. That didn't matter. For Karen, compliance was oxygen. She didn't want neighbors, she wanted subjects. And once she figured out I wasn't going to roll over for her, well, all hell broke loose. It started with the flowers. My crimson delight begonias, bright, hardy, cheerful little things, didn't make her approved list, and before I knew it, I was getting violation letters stamped with the HOA's official logo as if I'd committed tax fraud. $5 a day fines for flowers. Then it was my mailbox. Mine was black with a silver flag. Apparently a crime in Karen's eyes. The real kicker? My bird feeder. She actually wrote in her own handwriting that it attracted undesirable avian elements. What was she hoping for? Bald eagles only? Most folks just grumbled and paid up. George told me, "Son, just plant the red ones, you'll never win." But I'm wired a little differently. If the bylaws say harmonious landscaping, I'm going to hold them to that. I'd write back, cite the rules, copy the board. Every time I did, you could almost hear Karen's jaw grinding from across the street. It turned into a war of attrition, her inventing new rules, me dissecting them with an engineer's precision. And you know what? That might have been the end of it if not for the night she sent a locksmith to my house at midnight. That was the turning point right there. I'd been up late, tinkering in the garage, lost track of time. As usual, finally came inside, poured a glass of water, and heard it. A metallic clink, clink, clink at the front door. Not the wind. No, this was deliberate. I eased the curtain back, and sure enough, there was a guy crouched at my door, flashlight wedged under his arm, tools in hand, and Karen's giant white SUV idling at the curb. I didn't dare open the door, not with the lock half installed, so I just watched. The guy finished in 5 minutes, flat-handed something through Karen's window, and they both rolled off quiet as ghosts. When I tried my key in the morning, nothing didn't fit, didn't turn. Even George's spare didn't work. And just like that, I realized Karen had changed the locks on my house while I was asleep inside. You ever get so mad you actually laugh? That's where I was. I had to call an emergency locksmith just to get into my own house, and there waiting for me on the table was a letter from Karen herself. Something about neighborhood harmony protocols, claiming she'd tried to contact me, she hadn't, and listing the so-called violations she'd found: mismatched bathroom colors, uninspired window treatments, and my personal favorite, general lack of decorative élan. Oh, and she billed me for the locksmith, too. The audacity. The next thing I noticed was the scent, her perfume thick and sweet, lingering in my hallway like she'd just swept through judging the drapes. Not gonna lie, for a moment I felt violated, angry, shaken, ready to pack up and move. But then I sat at my kitchen table staring at the stack of evidence, her letter, the locksmith's invoice, scratches around the door, and a half-empty water bottle with the locksmith's company logo still on it, and realized this wasn't about flowers or mailboxes. This was about power. I called Carol Simmons, the sharpest real estate attorney I knew. She listened, then said, "Mark, you realize what you've got here. This is trespass, plain and simple," and she admitted it in writing. Carol told me to treat everything like evidence, change the locks again, high security this time, document everything, and send a cease and desist to both Karen and the board. She was fired up, and that gave me my focus back. But it didn't stop Karen, oh, not even close. For the next week, it was like living with a stalker. Anonymous complaints poured in my lawn, my trash cans, some invented oil stain in the driveway. Each one triggered an official-looking notice full of Karen's signature passive-aggressive, "It is disheartening when certain residents disregard communal harmony." Yeah, that happened. She even showed up at my door with 2 board members demanding an emergency landscape inspection for invasive dandelions. I looked her right in the eye and said, "You don't step in my backyard without a warrant, Karen. Not after your little locksmith stunt." The look on her face, pure rage, backed up by 2 board members who looked ready to dig a tunnel to escape. That was when the idea took root. See, ordinary locks weren't enough. She'd already shown she was willing to cross the line. I needed something that said, without a word, "This is my castle. Try me." It started as a joke, a bank vault door like the ones in movies. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I called around, found a security company run by a retired military guy named Marcus, who didn't even blink when I told him what I wanted. 8 inches thick composite steel, 6 locking bolts as big as my wrist crank handle, weighs 2 tons, the whole works. Marcus said, "You got the frame to hold it?" I brought in Dr. Anna Kararma, a structural engineer who studied my blueprints, tapped a few walls, and finally cracked a smile. Ambitious but doable. The hardest part was keeping it under wraps. New footings, an I-beam, and a custom steel frame went in while Karen was out at her weekly power lunches. The door itself took 8 weeks to build. 8 weeks of Karen's ridiculous letters. 8 weeks of my neighbors peeking over the hedges, trying to guess what I was up to. But I waited, bided my time, and when the door finally arrived, crane flatbed crew of guys who looked like they bench-pressed Buicks for fun, the whole neighborhood came out to watch. You've never seen anything like it. The crate alone looked like it could house a small car. They swung it over the hedges, lined it up, and when it finally slid into place with a sound like the end of the world, I swear my house settled an inch into the foundation. I watched those guys bolt, weld, and calibrate for 3 days. Neighbors gawking, drivers slowing down, Mrs. Rodriguez recording on her phone like it was the Macy's parade. When it was done, the graphite finish caught the sun just right, dark gleaming, not pretty, but powerful. For the first time in months, I felt safe. And I knew it wouldn't take long for Karen to show up. Sure enough, a week later, Tuesday morning, perfect timing, my security camera pinged "motion detected." There she was, lemon yellow suit clipboard like a battle flag, Gerald trailing behind her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen froze when she saw the door. Her sunglasses slipped, her mouth fell open. She tapped the steel, then snatched her hand back like it had shocked her. What in the Sam Hill? I hit the 2-way audio and said, "Good morning, Karen. Can I help you?" She jumped. Demanded I open the door for a scheduled compliance review. I told her she wasn't coming in unless she had a court order. She wasn't crossing my threshold ever again. She threatened fines, quoted bylaws, shrieked about overtly defensive architecture. Gerald tried not to laugh. I told her to add it to the file. My lawyer, Carol, would love it. The camera caught every second of her meltdown. By that night, the video was already circulating. Mrs. Rodriguez made sure of it. Neighbors started calling me Fort Knox. Karen went ballistic, tried to ram through new rules, banning fortified entryways. The board ignored her. When Carol filed for damages, trespass, legal fees, and even reimbursement for the damn locksmith, the board's lawyer saw the writing on the wall. Next thing you know, the HOA's insurer cut me a check, covered every penny plus damages. Most satisfying, Karen had to write a formal apology sent to every resident. A week later, Karen moved out. Rumor had it she found a neighborhood with no HOA. The board changed hands, the bylaws got a makeover, and everyone finally got the message. Private property is private for a reason. My vault door stayed, of course, too famous, too symbolic to remove. Every night when I spin that steel wheel and hear the bolt settle, I think about what George said. Sometimes you got to plant the red ones, son. Maybe. But sometimes you plant a steel wall and dare anyone to cross it. So here's my question for you folks. If you were in my shoes, how far would you go to defend your home? Ever deal with a neighbor like Karen? Drop your stories below. Let's hear what real justice looks like. And hey, if you ever need advice on home security, I might know a guy.